You know what bothers me about the way we teach science in school? We hand a kid a textbook, and right there on page one, somebody has already decided that the most important thing is the definition. Voltage is the electric potential difference between 2 points. Current is the rate of flow of electric charge. Power is the rate at which energy is transferred. And the kid sits there staring at those words, and something inside them just quietly dies a little. Because those words do not mean anything to a human being who has never been given a picture, a feeling, a way to hold the idea in their hands and turn it around. That is the crime. That is what I cannot stand. Science is not a collection of definitions you memorize so you can pass a test on Friday. Science is the universe actually talking to you, and it is talking in a language so simple and so honest that a child, a real child, not a little adult stuffed into a school uniform, but a child who plays in the yard and turns on faucets and gets splashed by garden hoses, that child already understands the deep mechanical truth underneath every single electrical concept that confuses grown people for their entire lives. So we are going to throw the textbook out, right now, gone. We are going to walk outside and find a garden hose, because the garden hose is going to teach you everything. You have got a hose connected to a faucet. The hose is just sitting there, coiled up on the lawn, not doing anything. Now, the moment you twist that faucet open, something changes. Water starts moving through that hose. It rushes down the length of the rubber, finds the open end, and comes shooting out the other side. Simple, obvious. You have seen it 1,000 times. Now, here is where it gets interesting, because that one simple system, water moving through a hose, is carrying 3 completely separate pieces of information at the same time, and each one of those pieces of information corresponds precisely to one of the things people find confusing about electricity. You have got the amount of water flowing, you have got the pressure pushing it, and you have got the total power, the actual force of the water when it comes out and hits something. Those 3 things are amps and volts and watts. That is the whole secret. That is everything. Everything else is just filling in the details. Let us start with the water flowing. When you open that faucet, just a tiny crack, a thin little thread of water dribbles out the end of the hose. You could catch it in a cup. It would take a while. Now you twist the faucet further, and more water starts moving through the same hose. Twist it all the way open, and now you have got a real flood rushing through, a big thick column of water blasting out the end. The difference between those 2 situations, the dribble and the flood, is purely about the volume of water moving past a given point every second. In a wire, the water is electrons. Electrons are the tiny particles that live inside every atom of copper in that wire, and when you connect the wire to something and switch it on, those electrons start moving. They start drifting down the wire together, billions and billions and billions of them, a river of charge moving in one direction. The number of those electrons flowing past any single point in the wire every single second, that number, that count of charge rushing through is what we call amps. A wire carrying 1 amp is moving an absolutely staggering quantity of electrons. The number is so large it is almost meaningless to say out loud. Roughly 6 million electrons per second past any single cross-section of that wire. That is not a small number. That is an ocean of charge. And a wire carrying 10 amps is moving 10 times that ocean. The more amps, the more charge flowing, the more electrons thundering down the wire per second. Just the way more water thunders through the hose when you open the valve wider. This is why amperes matter when you are dealing with real electrical equipment. A hairdryer and a phone charger both run on the same household voltage, but the hairdryer pulls vastly more amps. It needs a river of electrons to heat that coil of wire inside it to the temperature where it glows and pushes hot air out. The charger for your phone needs only a trickle, a quiet little stream, enough to slowly push charge into the battery without demanding a flood from the wall. When electricians talk about wiring a house and choosing wire thickness, they are fundamentally talking about amps. A thin wire that is forced to carry too many amps will heat up, because all those electrons are crowding through a narrow channel and fighting each other, and the friction of that fight turns into heat. That is how electrical fires start. The wire becomes the hose that is too small for the flood. Now let us talk about the pressure. Go back to that garden hose. Same hose, same faucet, but now imagine 2 different situations. In the first situation, you have a normal water pressure coming from your household supply, a decent amount of push behind the water. In the second situation, you somehow connect that hose to a water tower, a massive elevated tank sitting up on a hill, and the weight of all that water way up high is now bearing down through the hose with tremendous, crushing mechanical force. Same hose, same diameter, but the water in the second case comes out with such violence that it could strip paint off a wall. What changed? The pressure changed, the push behind the water changed, and that pressure is volts. Voltage is not the electrons themselves. Voltage is the reason the electrons move. It is the electrical pressure, the difference in electrical potential between one end of the wire and the other, that shoves the electrons from where they are crowded and stuffed together to where there is more room to spread out. Electrons want to move from the negative end, where there is a surplus of charge, to the positive end, where there is a shortage. That imbalance, that difference between the 2 points, that is the voltage. And the bigger the difference, the more violently the electrons get shoved, the more force they hit everything with as they move. A 12-volt car battery has a certain amount of electrical pressure. A standard wall outlet in most countries has somewhere around 110 to 220 volts depending on where you are, and that is a dramatically larger push. The electrons coming out of that wall outlet are being driven by nearly 20 times more pressure than the electrons dribbling out of a car battery. That is why you use a car battery to start an engine, but you use the wall outlet to run a clothes dryer. The dryer needs electrons that are being pushed with real force. And this is the crucial thing, because here is where people get confused. Amps and volts are completely separate measurements. You can have high voltage and low current. You can have low voltage and high current. A static electricity spark jumping off your fingertip when you shuffle across a carpet, that spark can be 10,000 volts or more, a genuinely enormous pressure difference. But the current, the actual number of electrons moving in that spark, is almost nothing, a tiny, fleeting fraction of a single amp. So the spark tingles and startles you, but it does not kill you or run your refrigerator. The pressure is extreme, but the flow is nearly zero. Conversely, a car battery is 12 volts. Modest pressure, but it can push hundreds of amps through the starter motor for a few seconds. Hundreds of amps is a serious river of electrons, which is why you never short-circuit a car battery with a metal object. The voltage will not electrocute you normally, but the current that flows through a short circuit can vaporize metal, start fires, and cause a battery to explode. Low pressure, but a catastrophic flood. So amps and volts each tell you something real, but neither one alone tells you the full story of what the electricity is actually doing for you. For that, you need watts. Come back to the hose one final time. You are holding the end of the hose and the water is flowing out. How much real, physical work can this water do for you? Can it turn a water wheel to grind grain? Can it drive a turbine? Can it push a mill? The answer depends on both things at once. It depends on how much water is flowing per second, the amps, and it depends on how hard that water is being pushed, the volts. A tiny trickle at enormous pressure might not do much. A massive flood at almost no pressure might not do much either. But a big flood at high pressure, now you are doing serious work. Watts are precisely that product. Watts are amps multiplied by volts. Power equals current times voltage. If you have a wire carrying 1 amp at 1 volt, you have 1 watt of power, 1 watt of actual working energy being transferred every second. If you double the voltage to 2 volts with the same 1 amp, you have 2 watts. If you then double the current to 2 amps at 2 volts, you have 4 watts. The power grows when either one grows, and it grows the fastest when both grow together. This is why your light bulb says 60 watts on the box. It means that bulb, when plugged into the wall, is consuming 60 joules of energy every single second. It is drawing enough current at the voltage of your household supply to convert 60 joules per second from electrical energy into light and heat. A 100-watt bulb pulls more current from the same wall voltage because it is doing more work per second, converting more energy into light. A cheap little nightlight might be only 4 watts. An industrial machine might be pulling 40,000 watts, 40 kilowatts, because it is moving an enormous amount of charge at high pressure to do serious mechanical work. The beautiful, almost funny truth is that once you strip away all the terminology, all the intimidating symbols in the equations, electricity is just a mechanical system. It follows the same logic as water moving through pipes, the same logic as a ball rolling downhill. The same logic as any system in the universe where energy moves from one place to another because there is a difference between two states, a high place and a low place, a full tank and an empty tank, a crowded side and an uncrowded side. Nature is obsessively consistent about this. It uses the same basic principles over and over, and all we do as physicists is learn to recognize the same pattern wearing different clothes. The joy, the genuine thrill, is not in memorizing that P equals I times V. The thrill is in the moment when your brain suddenly feels the connection, when you are standing in your backyard with a garden hose and you realize that the machine in your chest right now, your heart, is doing the same mechanical calculation. It is pushing a fluid through tubes using pressure to drive flow and move energy through a system. The electrons in your wall and the blood in your veins are both just matter moving through channels because something is pushing from behind. The universe does not know it is being clever. It is just being consistent. And the most astonishing thing about being a human being who has spent time learning to look carefully at the physical world is that you start to see the same deep mechanical truth underneath everything. The fog clears, and what is left is not complicated. What is left is almost embarrassingly simple. And simple things, understood deeply, are the most beautiful things there are.